Today, I'm going to be presenting on the effects of emotion on memory and how it can cause distortions and recalls of false memory. So the first article that I'll be explaining is negative emotion increases false memory for person and action conjunctions. And the second article I will be mentioning is inferential false memories for emotional events in older adults. So for the first article, have that emotion plays a role in making false memories. So the experiment shown in this article was to see if emotion affect the binding process in memory. And that's how often we see eyewitness accounts are often mistaken for someone else, and individuals seen in neutral context can be mistaken for someone else. So in unconscious transference, an eyewitness to a crime may mistakenly remember having seen a crime committed by an innocent person, but this was likely because they saw this person earlier in a more neutral context. So the second article we discuss there are emotional events associated with fewer false memories, and we also have the distinctiveness hypothesis. So this hypothesis is that emotional material that we experience may have more attention drawn to us. Therefore, we're able to memorize and keep those emotional events in our memory for longer. And also is the theory that memory performance declines with age, because in this experiment, they're going to be comparing emotional memory between older adults and younger adults. And we also have the socio-emotional selectivity theory. So this is the hypothesis that false memory generally increases with aging because the underlying reconstructive and semantic processes are intact. But we assume that other adults would regulate their emotions differently from young adults, and they would prefer to focus on positive rather than negative information. And that is because as they get older, they don't really want to focus on the negative. They want to focus more on the positive as they continue in their life and as their lifespan shortens. And finally, false recognitions were reported and compared to younger adults' performance in this specific experiment. So for the Article 1 participants, they had 81 undergraduate psychology students that were attending Florida Atlantic University. So they viewed 48 encoding videos and were asked to remember the actions in the videos as well as the performers in the videos. So in these 48 videos, they were consisted of negatively valenced, conjunction, and neutral videos. And so in the testing, there were tested between a span of 2 weeks. So 1 week they were showing videos, and then a week later they were showing more videos with some old ones being shown as well as new ones being introduced. So the independent variable in this experiment was the emotional valence, so the neutral versus the negative, and the item type, which is the old action versus the conjunction versus the new action. And for a dependent variable, we have that yes responses to different types of recognition items and ratings of confidence judgments. So this is because after the test, they were asked if they recognized specific items compared to the first week and in the second week. And they're also asked like confidence scales, like how confident they were and that they had seen the previous video. And then we have Article 2. So in this experiment, we had 67 older adults, and they were between the ages of 65 and 89. And they were presented with a series of scripted photos. They used the false memory paradigm to be able to determine causal errors in order to test for emotional false memory. So here they were shown 9 scripted events with 21 photographs, each consisting of 14 photos of the actual event, as well as 1 neutral, 1 negative high arousal, 1 positive high arousal, each composed by 2 photographs, plus a common ending photograph showing only the scenery. And so after this, they were also shown with 15-minute interval filler tasks, kind of just to be able to distinguish between the different scripted events. So our independent variable are the neutral, negative, and positive arousal as seen in the photographs that they were shown. And then the dependent variable was whether they responded yes in recognizing the different photos and neutral and positive and negative events between the 15-minute intervals. So the results for Article 1 here show on the left graph, we see that participants were significantly more likely to falsely recognize conjunction items involving negative emotional valence than those that were neutral. And we also see that participants remembered emotional actions better than neutral actions, but they had a greater difficulty remembering which people had performed emotional actions than at remembering which people had performed neutral actions. And then we see on the graph to the right that familiar negative action performed by the wrong person thus led to a greater increase in the rate of false recognition than did a familiar neutral action. And then this suggests that participants remembered the emotional actions especially well, but had difficulty remembering which people had performed those actions. This is the first graph, and then this is the second graph. And then for Article 2, this is showing the casual errors that were tested. So in the previous testing that I've done with the young adults, we see the results here, and that's in kind of like this square red. So it'd be shown here, and then we have the older adults base in the purple and the uninformative in the gray. But this graph just shows that there was strong evidence of an effect of valence on casual errors, indicating that the intercept was higher in the elderly than previously observed in the young adults in previous studies. And then we have discussion section. So for Article 1, it was remembered that negatively valence actions especially well. They still had difficulty remembering which people performed those actions. Participants were thus especially likely to falsely recognize conjunction items involving negative emotional valence. And although emotion appears to yield heightened memory for actions, the results provide no evidence that emotion facilitates the binding of action information. So we can say that the hypothesis wasn't found, or it wasn't, they weren't able to find a conclusion for the hypothesis because they had this idea that their emotion would facilitate the binding of the binding process of memory, but it did not. And for Article 2, we found that emotionality affects the probability of committing inference-based casual errors in older adults and overall higher probability of false memory in older adults. And we see how memory may be affected as you go older. As you get older, memory declines, but however, emotional memory may remain relatively protected against distortion. So older people would still be able to utilize their emotional memory the same as young people would.